What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Uprise Live. We got a pretty action-packed stream that's not really about Blazers topics necessarily. We got Giannis resigning in Milwaukee. I love that. We'll go into depth on that. We got James Harden trade rumors heating up. I love that too. Hopefully he goes to the East and we can take one of those teams out of the picture. And we'll also take your questions, preview the game tomorrow, and talk some Blazer basketball on top of the rumor mill and the Giannis extension. Man, let me just say this right off the bat. I'm so happy he resigned in Milwaukee. We don't have to hear rumors about it constantly for the next year about, oh, he's going to go to the Lakers. Oh, he's going to go to the Warriors. He's going to go, I'm so glad we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a win for all small market teams, I think, and a win for the NBA when guys like Dame and Giannis decide to stay where they're at and not want to leave the first chance they get with those franchises. So I agree that it's a good sign.
Yep. So shout out to everybody in chat. Little slow start, but Reese says he likes my cut. Appreciate it, bro. I needed all that weight off my head. So I'm feeling good. My hair might be shorter than Eric's now. I know. Eric, you still growing yours out, or did you cut it?
Still growing.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. I'm looking like you. You're looking like me. We're twins now. I'll take Raul Neto over Baker Mayfield. All right, because who started the Baker Mayfield thing in chat? Man, because I literally in public got called Baker Mayfield once. I don't think I look anything like Baker Mayfield. I hope I don't look anything like Baker Mayfield.
See, look what you started, man. Beavis thought I was bald this whole time.
Hey, man, I told you to grow it out and let it fly so that there would be no doubt that you actually can grow hair on your head.
No one could ever doubt me again, I think.
Exactly. You've proven everybody wrong. Now you can go bald as a choice. Man, so one time I hopped out of an Uber downtown Portland. I was going to a bar. This was obviously like a year and a half ago. And I hop out the Uber, walk in the bar. Somebody outside, I don't even know where. Yo, what's up, Baker Mayfield? Like, yells that at me. So, I don't know. I think I tweeted about it. So, I don't know if all the Baker Mayfield stuff is because I tweeted about it and somebody remembered, or if it's just a coincidence. But I do not look like Baker Mayfield. Y'all gotta stop with that. It's a little too much.
You definitely don't now, but with the hat,
I don't look as smug.
A little bit.
Maybe. Yeah, it's weird not to be wearing a hat, man. But so... sorry for going live a little bit late. I actually just did a guest appearance on a podcast. My first one I've ever done. I've never guested on anything. It's a little bit weird because I'm used to kind of being in control. You know what I mean? Like used to the YouTube thing. So guesting on a podcast was something different. It was completely new. So I'm still transitioning out of that mode into YouTuber Blazers Uprise mode, but yeah, so that'll go out on Monday. It was with Ryan Whitledge, is the Blazers Tag podcast, so I will shout it out so you guys can listen to that. It was a pretty interesting conversation. Eric's guested on it before, so Eric actually debuted as a guest before me because Eric's just big time like that.
Actually, honestly, he asked either one of us to come on and you couldn't, so I was like, yeah, fine.
He's asked me a bunch of times that I could. Today I was finally like, okay, let's make it happen. Isaac, I will take Nick Stauskas over Baker Mayfield. I am okay with Nick Stauskas. I'm cool with that. So do you guys, I want chat to let us know what we should talk about first. Because normally I just ask Eric. I'm going to ask you guys, chat. Do you want us to talk about Giannis first, Harden first, or do you want us to talk Blazer basketball and take your questions first? Let me know in chat, and we will roll with whatever you guys want. Okay, this is a democracy today, right? I'm not running this like a dictatorship today, so I will let you guys, voice what you want us to touch on first.
3 votes for Harden so far.
Save the best for last, says Shervins. Baker Jones. Okay, is this really going to become a 2.2 thing where I'm going to have to put people in 5-minute timeouts if they say the word Baker? I need to ban that word. Or that name.
So far, everyone said Harden.
Harden. All right. So, do you have the tweets, or do you want me to read them off? I can read them off.
You read them off. I don't know.
All right, so Shams was tweeting about James Harden today, and we all know the saga there in Houston. Westbrook is gone. I literally cannot physically say that man's real last name. And you have James Harden now potentially on the outs there in Houston. He wants out, and let me just read off the tweets today, all right? So Shams tweeted, the Philadelphia 76ers have made Ben Simmons available in some packages with the Houston Rockets for James Harden. Sources tell Athletic NBA and Stadium. Conversations aren't fluid as of now, so whatever that means. But the 76ers are obviously going to have to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden. I'm stumbling over my words here. They're going to have to trade Ben Simmons. That's the only way they could get James Harden. But it sounds like the disconnect is based on how many picks the Rockets want from the 76ers compared to how many picks the Sixers want to give up. So that's kind of the disconnect there. But then you also had a quote from Emeka Okafor. Or was it Daryl Morey? I forget which one. But from either one of those guys, both of them work in the 76ers front office, and they came out today and said that they're not trading Ben Simmons. So who knows what the deal is with the Sixers.
I think that was Morey.
Was that Morey? Okay.
Morey denied that, yeah. But, I mean, that doesn't mean anything. But
yeah, so, I mean, we've heard that before, and then a week later, that player gets traded anyway. So you had that going on with the Sixers, who might be the front runner right now. But you also had a report that stated that the Rockets are in talks with multiple contending or playoff level teams in both conferences on a James Harden trade. So it sounds like there might be a couple teams in those negotiations that haven't been mentioned. Before we start throwing out the Portland Trailblazers, no thank you. Let me just say that right now. I do not want that whatsoever, and just fingers crossed. I don't want a James Harden trade. I don't want that guy on our team. But it sounds like there is a legitimate amount of interest around the NBA for James Harden. I'm just curious who the dark horse teams might be. So that's kind of where we stand at now. I feel like he's definitely going to get traded at some point in the next month, just based on what I heard today and how the Rockets are in talks with a number of teams. I feel like if they're in talks with a bunch of different teams, one team will offer a package that the Rockets are willing to take. I'm just kind of curious as to what teams are in negotiations with the Rockets, because we've heard Sixers, we've heard Nets. We haven't really heard anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, just going through the teams, I mean, the Lakers don't really have a way to get there, I don't think, contract-wise. Obviously, they're not going to trade LeBron or Anthony Davis. The Clippers, there was a rumor that they could float a Paul George trade out there, but now that he's been extended, he can't be traded for 6 months, so that pretty much rules them out unless I can't imagine a scenario where they have enough players other than Harden or Leonard to make a trade work, considering they don't really have any picks they can trade either. Yeah. So I don't see that working with them. The Warriors could get there pretty easily salary-wise. And I guess if they include Wiseman and the Minnesota pick, that's two good prospects, but I don't know if that's really more intriguing than some of the, like a Ben Simmons would be for them. So
I have a hard time seeing James Harden. I mean, like, he'd make them better this year, but I don't think that he'd make them a contention level team this year, because what's the staple of a Steve Kerr-led Golden State team? Beautiful ball movement, beautiful player movement. James Harden is the opposite of that. So that would be a serious clash of styles. It'd be intriguing to see how he fit there. I'm hoping he doesn't go to a Western Conference team. I mean, but maybe that's a destination. I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, I kind of want to see, because I kind of feel like he could play off the ball. It's just he hasn't had to much in his career. And Westbrook isn't the best player to try and test that theory with. So, and I mean, it almost worked with him and Chris Paul. So I don't know. He might be fine in that kind of situation. Like, obviously, I hope he doesn't go to a team like that that's just super stacked. But yeah, if you look at the other teams, I mean, Utah, I don't see them having enough pieces to make that work. Um, let's see. The Suns, I don't see that make it. They don't have a way to make it work. I don't really know what other contending teams. And
Yeah.
for Portland's sake, let me just say this: it would be extremely tricky because we are hard capped with signing Derrick Jones Jr. to the full mid level exception, and pretty much any scenario where we give out CJ, we'd have to include at least like 10 to 12 million in salary other than CJ just to make the trade work and to have enough room to sign a couple minimum contracts. So if we give up 4 players for Harden, we have to sign 3 players to get back up to the 14 players on the roster. So it makes it very tricky unless you start talking about sending Rocco to a third team or including Nurk or
Yeah.
or like a Cantor and Collins and another young player, and then we have to sign 3 minimum players. Yeah, it's really hard to make a trade work for the Blazers, even if you wanted Harden as part of this team.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I don't even want to talk about it from a Blazers standpoint. Not only because I don't want it to happen, but also, yeah, the math is extremely tricky, and I just don't think it's really realistic.
Jose Hernandez mentions the Mavs. That's a team I forgot about, but so they have the salary to make it work probably. Between I think like Tim Hardaway makes a little over 20 million, and he's an expiring contract. Uh, but they don't. They owe 2 future firsts to the Knicks, and the terms of those trades or those picks make it hard to trade a bunch of future picks. So if we're talking about Western Conference teams, I don't really think a lot of contending teams make
Yeah,
sense.
they would have to trade Porzingis, and at that point, does it really make that much sense for Dallas? I don't think it makes much sense if you have to give up Porzingis plus additional assets. And given what it seems like they're asking from the Sixers, like the Mavericks would have to give up Porzingis on top of like additional decent assets, which they don't really have.
So yeah, to me, I agree. It's seeming like that's just being floated out there to try and get better offers. The rumor is that they said they would require Simmons and 3 first round picks from back, which I think is a little over the top. I mean, obviously Harden's a better player than Simmons, but Harden's also I think 7 or 8 years older than Simmons. So yeah, I don't know if that's the best the best way to approach it from Houston. I would say if you could get Simmons and a couple other picks or a young player or something, I think you would take that if you're in their position, just because I don't think it's going to work out with Harden being
Yeah.
there anymore.
I feel like there's a chance that a team comes out of nowhere and becomes a serious player in this. One team that could fit that bill would be Atlanta, maybe. Like, if they're really trying to win, like Trae Young and James Harden
That would
offensively
be
is
weird too.
it's weird, but it's still a phenomenal backcourt offensively, right? And honestly, if you add James Harden, they'd probably have to give up John Collins if the Rockets want him. They got Kongwu. They got a decent amount of. I think they have all their own future first round picks, and they might have a couple other future picks from other teams. Maybe a Kevin Herter or DeAndre Hunter was the 4th overall pick just a year ago in the 2019 draft. So they have the assets to make it happen. And I mean, you could trade a John Collins and put Danilo Gallinari in as your starting four, because right now he's projected to come off the bench. A starting lineup of Trae Young, James Harden, Bogdanovich, Gallinari, and Capella is a really good starting lineup. Like, defensively has some serious question marks, but offensively that is a phenomenal starting lineup. Like, that team could compete for home court advantage in the East. I think it would be in that mix of teams with like the Sixers and the Celtics. The Celtics lost Hayward, so they might take a little step back. They would be in that mix of teams, so maybe like that could be a dark horse team.
Just real quick, explain why you think Curry and Harden wouldn't work, but Trae Young and Harden would.
I don't think it would work. Like, I don't think Atlanta would be a contention level team. And I said that, like, Harden and Curry, yeah, they probably become a playoff team, but I don't think they become a contention level team, right? The thing is, like, I feel like Atlanta's foundation isn't based off ball movement and player movement or anything, right? Whereas like the Warriors foundation is based on that type of stuff, and it's just weird to have such a high usage player that completely clashes with the foundation of a team and how they run things that I don't know. I don't think they would contend. Honestly, like the Warriors with Harden, like I don't know. Are they really that much better than the Hawks with Harden? Because the Hawks have better like 3, 4, 5 guys beyond that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know. Depending on who they trade, you know what I mean. So I don't know. Like it's interesting, but like that's a dark horse team. Do you think Atlanta might become a player in this?
I don't really see them doing that with all their offseason moves. Um, I'm trying to think of because they can't trade once again all their players they signed until February. So how are they going to get their contract wise up to?
That is a good question.
I think they're at somewhere around 30. I think they'd have to get to like 34 million or something since they're under the tax. I don't think they're hard cap. Oh no, they ended up signing trading. Yeah, so they're fine.
Yeah, they probably have to trade Capella and Snell both, so they probably couldn't keep Capella there. But
yeah,
I don't know. Like that's it's just they're honestly, if they're not happy with Ben Simmons and a first round pick, then what else is really out there? You know what I mean? And you have Philadelphia saying that they're not going to trade Ben Simmons. Maybe they're telling the truth. If they're telling the truth, what are they really going to get back? Because honestly, I don't like Brooklyn's offer. I don't think Brooklyn is going to be able to offer enough for Harden in order to land him with Kyrie and KD. What else is out there? You know what I mean? And when you have a player as good as Harden, but there's not really enough out there in return for him, I feel like those types of situations are where a dark horse team kind of steps in and makes a trade that nobody sees coming. A perfect example for that would be Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors trading for him, right? But the Raptors were like ready to contend, so I don't know, it'd be different if a team like Atlanta stepped in. But it's just it's hard to see, it's hard to predict, man, because the teams that are like rumored to be doing it, it's like there's some serious question marks about the trade package, and it's hard to see like the Nets happening, and the Sixers, if they don't want to trade Simmons, aren't going to get him either. So what does it come down to, you know?
Tommy says Chicago would be interesting.
Yeah, see, I mean, that would be a dark horse team stepping in. I don't know, like the Levine and Wendell Carter and something else, like, yeah. But Chicago would probably still be a lottery team. You know what I mean? That's tough. Whereas like Atlanta, I think, is a better team than Chicago and has like better assets for not only the Rockets for a rebuild, but also like the Hawks are kind of deep this year. I feel like their depth is underrated. So like they could consolidate some of that and remain. It wouldn't be as much of a hit compared to like the Bulls, which they don't really have much, you know.
Jackson says, I hope they sign him to somewhere he hasn't listed. I agree, man. He doesn't have a no trade clause, so I always think it's ridiculous when players like that are like, oh, we'll only go to these teams. It's like, no, you'll go to whatever team they trade you to, or you'll
Charlotte. I threw out a random Charlotte trade just for fun. Honestly, I'm not even suggesting either team does it. I was just throwing it out for like, okay, would this trade package be enough? And what would the Hornets look like? Because the Hornets do weird stuff. You know, the move for Gordon Hayward was super weird. And they got three of their top 4 players are point guards, you know? So, I don't know. Like, that was the team I just threw out there, you know? Like, with how weird they've done things over the past few years, like they would be a team I could see doing something stupid and trading for Harden just to become an 8th seed or something like that. I don't know. But I mean, like Harden and Hayward is a okay start, you know, if Hayward kind of bounces back a little bit back to his Utah days with more responsibility. Even with Harden there, like I feel like Hayward would have more responsibility compared to playing next to like Kemba, Tatum, and Jaylen Brown. So I don't know. Maybe Charlotte, but I don't really see that.
Yeah, I'd always see whenever this comes up, the Knicks just sacrificing their entire future to try and make the playoffs this year or something. Just in that
Yeah.
drought.
XC Depp has another sleeper with Orlando. I mean, like, what is it? What is their plan, Eric? Can you try and explain what their plan is?
Orlando.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I mean, they're the eighth seed. They don't really have the young talent to like really give them a contention level ceiling. They have like some of their core players are aging. You know, you look at like a Fournier, you look at a Vucevic. It's like they're a team that has some young pieces, some intriguing young pieces that they could maybe throw in a package and might be desperate enough to really try and change things up. And they might be a team that would be willing to do it. Maybe you throw in Jonathan Isaac, who's not going to play this year because he's recovering from injury, but he's still a really good young prospect. And you got Fultz there, and you got Bamba, who was a top 10 pick a couple years ago, just hasn't really gotten a chance behind Vucevic. Like, and then if you have like Harden, Fournier, Vucevic, like Aaron Gordon, for as much as we hate on him, Aaron Gordon would be a terrible fit next to Harden. But I mean, you have something there, and Aaron Gordon would probably have to be a part of the trade.
Yeah, they probably trade him. So
yeah, so I don't know. Like, depending on who they keep, like that could be a decent team.
If Houston just went like all like up tempo and they had like John Wall and Aaron Gordon and stuff, like that's probably the best case scenario for those guys if they're ever gonna be good players, just playing on a team that just plays super fast like that. But obviously, I don't think that guy should have much value.
Yeah. Oh, Shervin's brought up Miami. That's the team I was forgetting. I mean, maybe, but for what made everything that made them good in the playoffs last year was that would kind of go out the window bringing in Harden, I feel like, because they basically gave the ball to Jimmy Butler and let him create for himself or others. And Jimmy Butler really had a leap in terms of his playmaking, and they give the ball to Bam and let him create for himself or others. Bam's passing is legit for a center. It's like you're going to get a guy who's going to pound the air out of the ball and isolate. You're going to kind of take away from both those guys what they do well. Jimmy Butler isn't a good floor spacer off of Harden, so that fits kind of weird. And then, you know, you're giving up Hero, who I'm not as high on him as other pieces, but like I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Miami have enough because they don't really have any future first round picks either, and it's like Hero and Robinson and
they don't have a lot of contracts to trade either. They got Olynyk at like 13 million or something, and I don't know if they could get to 40 million to.
Yeah. So like that's a team that I mean could they trade Iguodala? They could trade Iguodala, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Iguodala.
So it'd have to be like Iguodala, Olynyk, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. I feel like they'd have to throw Precious in there, and maybe Kendrick Nunn because they don't really have picks. It'd have to be something like that.
But those last three guys make under 2 million, I think. So.
Yeah, but just for like the asset value, Miami doesn't have a ton of assets. They're kind of like Brooklyn. I think their young prospects are a little bit more palatable to Houston. But I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to find a match. I feel like Houston's probably not going to get the best value back, which I'm down with that. I'm cool with that. You know, I don't want them to get good value back on James Harden. I want that team to be bad for the next 10 years. You know, we have too many good teams here in the Western Conference. Like, let Houston be bad for a decade. I'm cool with that.
That's why I think they're crazy if they turn down any package with Ben Simmons, because not that him and Wall, I'm not looking at it from that way, but just like in a vacuum, I don't see any way of getting, first of all, you get a good young player that you could build around. Philadelphia hasn't done the best job of building around Ben Simmons. They've kind of tried to half build around Simmons, half build around Embiid. So if you just said we're going to build completely around Simmons, that might be interesting. And then you recoup some of the draft picks and assets that you've lost in other trades, maybe. And they have a pick from us possibly next year too. So not the worst case in the world. It's just when you trade a bunch of future picks and they're not very well protected, it sucks to go into rebuild mode. So I don't know if that's the best course of action either, but I would definitely consider that if I was Houston. That's probably the best value you're going to get for a star like Harden.
Yeah, and Simmons and Christian Wood is actually like they're a good fit. Christian Wood playing the center. He's like a decent rim protector. He's not the best, but Ben Simmons is a great defender and could be like the point forward, power forward type paired in the front court, but be the point guard on offense. Like, and Christian Wood can space the floor at the center position and provide spacing for Ben Simmons, and Christian Wood's pretty young. Like, that would be a good like start. And honestly, both those guys are talented enough where they might not be like a bottom 5 or 6 team. That team would probably still be in the lottery, but would probably be 11th to 14th. And then, you just build on those guys. You try and add additional young talent, and, because they don't really have their picks in the future, it wouldn't be completely hitting the reset button and sucking and potentially getting nothing back for years where they suck because they have traded lightly protected picks.
Right.
So, Giannis re-signed with Milwaukee. I was so happy to see this because, man, as a small market ourselves, with all the super teams that have formed in big markets, AD, LeBron going to the Lakers, like, for me, man, I just want to see small markets keep their stars that they draft and that they develop. So Giannis re-signed in Milwaukee. I was so happy to see that, man. Like, I didn't want to hear Giannis to LA for a year. I didn't want to hear Giannis to Toronto even. I didn't want to hear Giannis, Miami, all the super team stuff. Like, all the stuff that goes into, like, the speculation about stars forming a super team in a big market or something. Like, that stuff, I don't like that stuff. That stuff kind of annoys me. Like, and just put yourself in the shoes of Milwaukee fans. They haven't been a contender for decades, right? I don't remember the last time they were a contender. Maybe I don't know. When was the last time before they got Giannis that they were a contender, Eric?
It's been a while, like maybe the Gary Payton, Ray Allen, Glenn Big Dog Robinson days, that they were the number 1 seed at least one time with that team. I can't remember a good, like, there were some teams that made the playoffs obviously in between there, but I don't remember a team being like a contender in Milwaukee from that since that era.
Yeah, I mean, just putting myself in the shoes of a Milwaukee Bucks fan, man, like, Giannis is their Dame, right? So imagine, like, imagine if Dame didn't sign an extension going into the last year of his deal, and everybody has photoshops of him in other people's jerseys, and there's everybody, telling you, yeah, Dame's gonna leave. Dame doesn't want to be in Milwaukee, talking trash about the city, about the team, about the organization, talking about how Dame's gonna leave. Like, that would suck. That's terrible. That's like the worst thing to deal with as a small market fan base, you just kind of get bullied by like, small markets get bullied by big markets in this league. So it's makes me happy to see an MVP player stay in Milwaukee, sign a Supermax extension. Milwaukee didn't have the best offseason, but they genuinely tried, and they tried to get creative and improve the team as much as possible. It kind of backfired with the Bogdanovich thing, and they were kind of a little bit short-sighted in regards to that deal specifically. But, they're trying to build the best possible team around Milwaukee, or around Giannis, and Giannis staying there just made me happy, just because it's one less super team being built in a big market, and it's one more small market keeping a loyal star.
Yep, and there are some rumors that he signed a Supermax, and they have like the same kind of deal that Paul George apparently signed with OKC, that if at some point he does demand a trade, they'll appease him on that. But he is for sure stuck there for at least this season and cannot demand a trade because he can't be traded for a year. So
yeah, that's still a good thing though, because Milwaukee would be able to get assets back, and whatever super team or whatever is formed would have to give up assets for Giannis and would be gutted a bit. It wouldn't be Giannis just straight up joining a team outright. So if it's Miami, they would possibly have to give up Bam, or at least Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, whatever. So that's the thing, is even if he does end up wanting to trade in a year or two, like, it's still better for the league, the fact that he resigned. And that's just a rumor, right? That wasn't confirmed or anything.
Yeah.
So who knows? Like, Milwaukee could have promised him that and then said, nah, man, we want you here long term, which would be kind of shady of them. But I don't know. It's just better for the league, and compared to if he didn't sign an extension and was in the last year of his deal next year, and there was all these rumors and all this talk about him leaving. It's just good for the NBA, man. Anything that empowers a small market, anything that's good for a small market and is against super teams being built in big markets, is good for the league, in my opinion, at least for me, because that's what I like to see.
Beavis has a good point. Giannis has kind of played up some of the talk too sometimes. So like the fact that he ended up staying is good because the fact that he was like, "Oh, I wouldn't mind playing with my brothers, whether it be in LA or Milwaukee and that kind of stuff." Like you can't say that stuff and then um like try to act like you're loyal if you don't sign and that you will probably stay anyway. But like I'm glad for Milwaukee that he decided to stay. And I know some Blazer fans are disappointed because they weren't basing it in reality, thinking that we could possibly get Giannis, but
It's more likely, like, it's not likely at all.
right.
At all. But it's more likely we get Giannis with him resigning and then maybe demanding a trade in the future.
Yeah.
It's more likely we get him that way than him signing it. He was never 0% chance he was going to sign here in free agency. Maybe there's a 0.1% chance we can trade for him if he demands a trade at some point during the contract. Right? Like, so that's the thing. All the fans that wanted him should be happy that he resigned because the only way we're getting him is via trade, and that's definitely not likely in the slightest. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up or anything, but that was the only way that was ever going to happen.
Yep. So yeah, it's I like that teams like because we before Dame and Giannis and I guess if you want to throw Steph Curry in there, like we've gone through a long period of time where players didn't stay with their team for very long. It's very rare to have the exceptions like Dirk Nowitzki. So it's nice that some of the guys are trending back towards wanting to get it done on the team they drafted them and rewarding the city that's invested in them and gave them a chance from the beginning. And I like that Milwaukee and Portland in particular are going to reap the benefits of drafting those players and getting to build around them still and not have them just leave for nothing like OKC had with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, and Milwaukee fans aren't the type that'll sit there on Twitter say, Dame, you should have left Portland, like trashing Dame for staying in Portland and saying Dame's never going to win. You know what I mean? Because like Milwaukee fans and Blazer fans can relate to each other. Whereas, like, Blazer fans can't relate to Laker fans, and Laker fans think they're entitled to every single player. It's part of the reason why I can't stand their fan base. And, but, like, Milwaukee, they went through the stress of, oh, he might leave, and, the stress that came with Giannis. It was more stress than we dealt with Dame, it never got quite as bad with us with Dame, but... we can relate, so I'm happy for those fans, because I'm cool with Milwaukee's fan base, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be happy ever for a Laker fan, but I'm happy for Milwaukee fans because I kind of see a little bit of us in them in terms of just being small market fans with a legitimate superstar right now.
And I saw a couple of blue check marks on Twitter and national media guys make the joke. They basically just took the Giannis will be re-signing for a 5-year contract in Milwaukee and saying like Giannis will not win a ring, just ensure that he will not win a ring for like 5 years, and that kind of stuff is such BS. Because like,
yeah,
I don't know, it's not like he's like choked in the playoffs. He was kind of hurt last year, but it's the same thing with Dame. What that he's going through a little bit where I don't know if the coaching staff is putting Giannis and Dame in the right positions to win in the playoffs, and hopefully that changes.
Hey man, I'm still encouraged by the coaching this year, man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's preview.
Hey, speaking of while we're talking about coaching,
oh yeah, you had something for me.
So I have a question for you, and chat can answer this too. And this isn't meant to like knock Stotts or whatever. Like this is a legitimate question I thought of this morning. All right, so we've talked in the like a lot about how the Blazers have never hired like a defensive specialist and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've also heard that Stotts, even with making the adjustments, did throw in that it was a difficult decision to, turn his back on his normal routines and game plans and schemes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there is a possibility that Stotts doesn't necessarily know how to coach other ways?
See, there was something asked kind of like this on the podcast that I did before this that I guessed on the Blazer Tag podcast. Similar question, and man, like my response to that was just, dude, I don't know. Wait and see, because we've never seen him go into a season where he's tried to coach multiple defenses. So I don't know if he can do it or not. It's uncharted territory.
Right.
So I mean, early in his tenure here, they did hedge, and they were a decent hedging team with like Rolo hedged, and Rolo's really good at hedging. The little side note, Let me get a little sidetracked here, real quick. People think that, oh, if you're a quick-footed big, you can hedge well. If you're not, then you can't hedge well. But it's not really that. A lot of it is feel, a lot of it is timing, a lot of it is proper positioning when you hedge out. Like Rolo isn't a quick-footed big, but he's really good at hedging. Honestly, Nurkic just look good at hedging. So like it's not necessarily that's where I think the personnel thing, we can't hedge, we don't have the personnel, gets a little misconstrued. But back to your question, man, I have no idea because I haven't seen him try to coach anything other than a drop scheme in so long that I don't have a good answer for you. Against Houston last year, we did change up our defense and we did a decent job of it. So I assume that, okay, if we do that consistently through the season, then we should be better than our defense was against Houston just because we'll have more repetitions. I don't know. Just in terms of like the rotations, this team has always been kind of iffy, even when they've had decent defensive seasons. So I don't know, man.
I think in the past, though, I've had a little more confidence in our assistant coaching staff. I feel like our staff right now is not really young is the right word, but a lot of those guys don't have a lot of experience. We don't have like a go-to defensive coordinator type guy. And that's something that Stotts has never really had with this team. So I wonder if we're going to why we didn't think about addressing that with the assistant coaching and bring in a guy who would have been able to help Stotts game plan some of these changes. So that's just something to watch for this year is the lack of a defensive assistant coach plus Stotts trying new things, whether a coaching staff can even do it. It could be a case where they are full out 100% like into this new style and want to play that way, but they don't know how to teach it and watch film on it to break it down to help the players understand what they're going to be doing, especially guys like Dame and CJ who have been in this same system for so many years.
I just came up with this thought just listening to you. I honestly think having Rocco helps with that because last game there was a clip where like Rocco was like talking to Stotts as if he was like telling Stotts like here's what we're struggling with, and almost like it wasn't necessarily a coach player, it was like two coaches talking together. And Rocco's a very smart defender who has probably ran every defensive scheme. He's had some different stops. He's played in Philadelphia, played in Minnesota, played in Houston, and now he's in Portland. So he's a smart defensive player that is like a veteran respected voice, especially when it comes to the defensive end, who I think like Stotts would listen to. So and just based off that preseason game, it sounded like Rocco was kind of like telling Stotts, okay, here's where we need to improve, and Rocco is a part of it, so he knows where we're struggling. So I feel like having him helps. He's not your traditional defensive assistant, but he can kind of act that way in a way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just don't know if having a player on the court is necessarily everything you need, but that's a good start to have a guy like that, especially someone who thrives playing off-ball defense, and he's going to be asked to play a little more on-ball than he's used to probably this year. So he might be able to tell guys, when I'm on the ball, this is what you should be doing off-ball. So hopefully he helps with that.
Yeah, at some point we will have to, I don't know if we could upload it to Twitter or something, we'll have to do like a film breakdown of where they're struggling like defensively, if they continue, or make a third channel where we react to full highlights, because the thing is like it's hard to do film breakdown of plays where like a team misses a shot, but most of our defensive breakdowns, we can easily get that footage from a highlight tape because the other team's scoring during those plays, right? So maybe like we'll have to because I feel like I have a pretty good feel for like what we're struggling with, but it'd be nice to actually like really break it down, not only for like other people, but also for myself, just to really see in a detailed way, really study some footage on where exactly we're making some of our defensive mistakes right now, and that's what the team should be doing. So that's a great question that you asked. I knew it was going to be a good one. I always get kind of excited because Eric said before the stream, like he's like, I got a good Stotts question for you, and I'm like, oh, you gonna prepare me for it? You gonna surprise me with it? He's like, I'm gonna surprise you. I'm always excited for that because generally it's a pretty good question because that I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see. On that.
So he was off on the year, but XC Dep was asking if we've looked at the 2002 Hawks for how good they were on defense. So
2002
Stotts was
Hawks.
only there for a year and a half, and the team wasn't that good, but they were 25th in defensive rating that year. Um, so not great. And then his teams in Milwaukee weren't that great either, but I
Yeah.
can take a look and see what their defensive rating was.
I mean, also, like, completely different offense that
Right.
he had to coach against in the early 2000s compared to now, so.
But that would have been it would have shown his defensive rating takes that into account. So his first year with the Bucks was they were 23rd, and then the next year he was 29th and got fired during the season.
Yeah, I mean, not a not a good track record
But like I
in
said,
his
those
previous
teams were
stops.
bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't really necessarily take too much from that. But yeah, not a huge history of that.
I mean, I'm just excited because this season is going to be a just completely different, and it's going to be telling as to, like, it's basically the last stand for Stotts as a coach in my eyes. This He has a chance to redeem himself in my eyes if he's able to properly do what he's trying to do. Like, part of it is like, okay, thank you, you're finally adjusting, you're finally coming in with the right mindset towards the defense, so like that's part of it. Okay, great. But now you have to execute that part of it as a coach and get the players to execute that part of it as players. And the second part is remain and see for me. And if he can't get them to be able to properly rotate and properly execute the philosophy, it's not an issue with the philosophy, it's an issue with maybe how it's being taught. And because honestly, like, personnel wise, I don't think it's an issue with the personnel this year. So it really just comes down to, can Stotts actually properly coach this type of mindset defensively where he's coaching a versatile defense, which we haven't really seen before. And that, I mean, I'm just excited to see if he's actually able to do that.
Mm. And Trevin asked, could they potentially hire a defensive assistant coach midseason? Yeah, there's no rule against what you can do with your coaching staffs. And that's one thing in the past, we've been willing to spend money on assistant coaches because there's no like salary cap for that. So I don't know where Jody stands on
Mm-hmm.
doing that. And that's probably the reason why we have such I'm guessing our coaching staff does not make a lot of money outside of Stotts. That's probably there's probably a reason for that, but you would think if they were going to bring in a defensive assistant, they would have brought him in before the season started, not during the season, because it's really hard to just come in and change everything on the fly mid-season. So I don't know if that will happen, but it's definitely it's able to happen if they wanted to. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't think they will. I think basically because you see this a lot in the NFL where they'll be like, well, you have to change your entire coaching staff or you're fired. And so they change their whole coaching staff and they buy themselves a year basically to prove that it wasn't me, it was all the other guys, you know?
Yeah.
So basically they're skipping that step with Stotts and basically saying, okay, you have the personnel, like this is on you this year to be the coach. And I like that because as several people have asked, yes, I definitely think this year is going to make or break Stott's tenure with the Blazers. I don't see him being a lame duck coach next year if he does poorly this year. So I think they would move on from him if he does not do well this year. I just hope we're not in that scenario because I don't want to have to look back on this season and say we wasted an opportunity to do something special because like we have the pieces. There's no excuse for being bad this year. So
Yeah, I want to like Stotts as a coach, man.
yeah,
Like I do, I genuinely do. You know, a hater doesn't want to see you succeed. A Stotts hater, like by definition, wouldn't want Stotts to succeed. But I want Stotts to succeed, man. Like, it, because he's a good guy. The players like him, right? And you know, he just has some serious deficiencies that I'm just praying he fixes. Okay, like, and the main two things for me is defensive versatility, like in terms of the way they run defense and the schemes they use, and being able to use the right scheme at the right time and being able to execute it right, and then the stagnant offense. Just fix those two things, and I'll be happy with him as a coach. Like it's to me, it's like it's not that hard to fix those things, man. It's not that hard, and so that's where it comes down to it, where it's a make or break here. Because just like here's the thing, just imagine this roster with Spoelstra. Spoelstra would get the most out of this roster. This team would be the second or third best team in the West with Spoelstra as the coach, in my opinion. Because, like, you look at what he did with Bam's passing last year and what he did, how good they were defensively with the type of defensive wings that we have now. You know, Derek Jones Jr., who was actually on the Heat, Robert Covington, you know, like Gary Trent Jr. Dude, I feel like Spoelstra would make this team definitely a top 3 team in the West. With Stas, there's just those question marks that I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'm just excited that they're at least going in with a different mindset than they have before. You know, that's a start. That's what I'm asking for in the preseason. Now we just have to see if they're actually able to accomplish what they're trying to do.
Yeah. The part that scares me is he's a George Karl disciple, and a few months back I read a quote from George Karl saying that he would rather lose in the playoffs doing it his way than actually win changing up his schemes and adapting in the playoffs. And that was an actual quote for him, and I just hope that Stotts realizes that how foolish that is, and that you can't do that. Like you can't just expect your way to get it done all the time. Like you have to make changes, and you have to play different ways against different teams. And hopefully that's the case this year. I just don't want to wait till the playoffs to find that out. I hope it's early on that we find that out if it's not going to work, so we can move on from him relatively quickly. But yeah, hopefully we don't have any of these conversations this year.
Yep. Shervin asks, how were we a top 10 defense in 2018? What's your answer for that?
Here's the thing about the drop scheme. This is the right reason why you can't just totally dismiss personnel, because if you have the right personnel, like if we had this team and we ran a drop scheme, we'd be okay on defense. We had pretty elite defenders, at least with our starting lineup that year, and so individual players running a drop scheme can play well. You see Ariza come in and play well in defense, but it doesn't matter because the team overall has bad defense, right? So but we didn't have Nurkic too, who's a really good team defender. And so when you mix Nurkic with Aminu and Harkless, who are all like our whole starting front line were good defenders, and they could play the drop scheme, but they knew what to do. They communicated well. You had a guy like Harkless who could guard 4 positions, and Aminu to some extent could do the same thing. And so like it can work with that, especially during the regular season. But the problem is, we've talked about this all the time. Like once you get into the playoffs and you're playing someone 7 games, it's so predictable if they can just watch film the entire year and watch every single pick and roll you've done, and you've done the same thing. So by the time you get to the playoffs, it's bad. But it can work, just like isolation can work most of the regular season, because teams can't focus enough, especially a season like this where you're basically having a game every other day this year. So teams don't have a ton of time to game plan or get ready for you, and you're not playing them over and over again. So that kind of stuff does work, but that's why it never works the same in the playoffs as the regular season. But the drop scheme, there's a reason why so many teams do it. I mean, Milwaukee exclusively did it last year, and you saw what happened to them once they got to the playoffs. But they had elite defenders almost across the board. Like Bledsoe's an elite defender, Middleton's an elite defender, Giannis won defensive player of the year. Brook Lopez over the past few years has had been near the top in rim protection stats and all that kind of stuff. So it worked during the regular season for them because they had players who knew what they were doing and could play defense. So if you have players that can play defense, it's fine. But my problem has always been, like last year, where we didn't have the players to necessarily play a drop scheme the entire season, and we didn't try to do anything different. We were just like, oh, well, we don't have the players to do it, but I'm just going to keep on running it anyway. It's almost like out of spite or something. But
yeah. Great answer. Shout out Dave, appreciate it, man. So we'll take a few more questions if you guys want. would be rare to keep a stream under an hour. Normally it's a little bit longer. So we'll just take your questions. We'll be live tomorrow after the game, of course, the last preseason game, and then we're ready for the real action. Can't wait for that. Seasonal content pushed back a little bit, so be ready for like a update video about what we're planning on doing this season.
Reese knows the answer to that, and he's going to try to trigger us.
We've answered that in like 5 different mailbags, man. Weight matchups? This isn't boxing, Beavis.
Beavis is obsessed with talking about how we match up with the Lakers, so we don't even play in the first game of the regular season.
Yeah. We need to. I don't know. Like we need to. That's a good answer around playoff time, but we need to like figure out our own team first and how like we still got so much to figure out with ourselves.
And Vivek, Tori loves Christian Wood. I'm really high on Christian Wood as well. So you know the answer to that as well.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about a Houston Rocket that I'm high on. It kind of hurts.
XC Dep, both of those guys do not. Shabazz Napier and Noah Vonleh cannot be signed to two-way contracts. You have to be within your first 4 years of NBA experience. So both of those players have more.
Yep. Kind of sad that Noah Vonleh got cut, man. Because he got COVID. And
he got sick, cut.
Yeah, that sucks for him, man.
But that's why I was kind of hoping we'd sign Ellaby to a two-way and then get a more veteran minimum there. But if we're healthy, we don't really need it anyway because we're 11 or 12 deep. So, yeah.
I will say this, though. There's only one positive test after a round of testing for a week? In the entire NBA, all the players, there's only one positive test. The positivity rate has declined over the past 3 weeks in terms of players testing positive. That's good news. And a lot of players have had it. So a lot of players could be immune to it, right? I think I saw at least 111 players and probably several more have had COVID. So you get more players that are immune to it, then it'll make it less likely for there to be real serious situations and whatnot. You don't want players to get it, but that is kind of the silver lining of it, I guess. So, I think it'll work. You'll obviously have some postponed games, some canceled games, but I heard some people saying no way this season happens, and I just think that's complete BS because at some point the players will get vaccinated. And even before then, man, I mean, the NFL made it work with 53-man rosters and a ton of coaches and whatnot. The Major League Baseball made it work despite having, 40-man rosters and playing every single day. So I think the NBA will be able to make it work.
Yeah, I just hope we don't see a Keontae Davis type situation in the NBA because that's the thing people always miss when talking about mortality rates and stuff like that. They don't focus as much on the long-term effects or the conditions that can affect you, like playing a sport or whatever. So I'm hoping the fact that there were so many people who have tested positive in the NBA turns out to be a good thing, like you said, versus a situation where we start to see problems from some of those players down the road.
Yep, agreed. So anything else you want to touch on? You want to take questions a little bit longer?
Yeah, just for a minute. So Caleb asks, are you worried at all about the bench's defense? I am a little worried when we have Cantor and Melo in at the same time. But I feel like if we need defense, we have the versatility with our lineups to make our bench good at defense too, and only play one of those two guys along with, you got Trent, who's a good defender. You got Hood, who's an average defender. And Giles should be a good defender too. So you have the pieces to mix that up a little bit and not just have so many offensive type players and so many defensive type players. So like mix them together, and I
Hmm.
think Stotts can figure that out pretty quickly. I'm not really worried about that too much.
Yep, exactly. Like you want one of your two bigs playing power forward and center to be able to shoot, and you want one of them to be able to defend. Like at least one. It'd be awesome if both bigs could do both things, right? But you need a guy that can shoot, and you need a guy that can defend at least. Sometimes they can be the same guy, but Melo can shoot. He's not really a good defender. Canner can't can't defend either that well. You know what I mean? So it's like
We should
if you
get
had
Collins back soon too. That'll help.
yeah, like if you had a Collins at the four, then okay, good fit with Connor because good fit with Canner because Collins can shoot and Collins can defend. If you had an Aminu, good fit with Canner, right? But with Melo playing the four, Giles is definitely a better fit there. I think Giles will earn that role at some point this season,
Yep. And
and
then
it will be a situational thing too
yeah,
in some points. So, but yeah, I think he wins that job.
Nick says I feel like y'all underestimate Collins. Are you talking to Tori and I? Because we're two of the biggest. Don't panic on Collins. He'll be fine. Like I still believe in his potential. In fact,
Mhm.
Westbrook asked me a mailbag question, one of my last mailbags, who I thought still had the most potential out of our young guys, and that was my answer was Zach Collins. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't understand that either. Because yeah, I dropped a stream clip, a few months ago, like telling people to not be too hard on Collins, man, and yeah, yeah, I still think he's a long term fit on this team. So
and Cooper asked us in order, who do you think has the most trade value between Collins, Simons, and Trent Jr.? I think that's easily Gary Trent right now.
yeah,
The
Collins
problem
and
is he
Anthony
doesn't
are
have
kind
the
of similar.
contract to really
Hmm.
bring back a big name or anything, but I would easily put Trent on number one in that
Yeah,
list.
you have to, and then Collins and Anthony, I feel like are pretty similar in terms of trade value.
And if you want to read more about what the Gary Trent Jr. turning down a contract extension means, I did post an article on BlazersUprise.com today about that.
Yep, new website launching. Still a couple things to clean up in terms of the formatting of the website and whatnot. And the content might be a little bit slow at first as we get some of our writers together. If you want to write for us and you think you're a solid writer, then you can email us at Blazers Uprise. It's blazersuprise at gmail.com is the email that you should email us at. We're not just taking anybody off the street who wants to write. We definitely want the writing quality to be solid. But we are willing to give people, the chance to write for us if they have some writing ability. So if you want to write for us, then send us an email, and that'll be like, everybody's new to it, and I'm new to like running a website and actually having people write for it. So it may not be the most consistent, but the goal is to just get consistent daily content from a number of different people, not one person writing every day, but just to be able to get you guys a consistent stream of content that'll be from a variety of different writers, different members of the community. That's basically the goal, to get to that point. We won't get there right away. It'll be a little bit of a work in progress, but we'll ramp it up through the season. And my video tomorrow or the next day, like when I drop my seasonal content announcement, that I've pushed back a little bit. Whenever I drop that video will talk a bit about some of the goals with the website and some of the things we're going to try and do with that. So, yeah, I appreciate your guys' support with everything we do. It means a lot. We couldn't do it without you guys. So, you guys are definitely very important and a big part of what makes Blazers Uprise what it is. So, definitely want to show my appreciation for all you that tune into us and check out, our videos, our streams, that conversate with us on Twitter and all that, man. I greatly appreciate it.
And
It
in just a few days, we'll be doing picks against the spread.
I know, man. We gotta get bets in place for that. All right. So if
Yeah.
you have any bet ideas for me and Eric, we'll get it in place before the season. Let us know. Also, our mods will be, if they want, will participate as well. So we will have more than just me and Eric. Just as a thank you to the mods, they will be able to participate in that. So Reese, Trevin, and Westbrick, wherever Westbrick is at, and then we'll have chat as well. So you'll have picks from multiple people, and that'll be good. I'll show the sneak peek actually, the graphics that I have.
Reese is already talking crap. Said between him, Trevin, and Westbrook, it's going to be too easy.
Oh yeah, we'll see. You saw my record last season; it was definitely positive. So but this is the. Let me zoom in here. This is basically the template that I'll be using for picks against the spread. Let me make sure it's showing up on the screen correctly. Yeah, this is the basically how picks against the spread will look. Let me know what you guys think about it. A little bit different than last year, but I think that looks pretty clean. We'll have the team record, and we'll have I don't know, like the spread. Is having it in the top like that good, you think, Eric, or do you think I should put it somewhere else?
I think it's fine. Maybe
it'll be bigger.
It'll be a little bigger, yeah.
Well, this is small on the screen.
Right,
like if it's on the screen, it'll be like that. So,
yep.
Yeah. So
that looks good.
That's what it'll look like. Very excited for that. And then there, like a logo intro and some different stuff that I'm trying to put together before the start of the season, like in terms of like, some additional graphics and trying to just introduce new things, as we roll into the season. I've been working a bit on that as well. So definitely just going to try and keep improving what we do and adding to it and expanding. And your guys' support makes all that possible and really drives the ship, so to say. So anyway, that's a wrap for the stream. Am I missing anything? Do you want to touch on anything else? You want to answer a final question or anything?
I just don't want to hear you talk about how you didn't know. Oh, I didn't know that guy was injured or wouldn't play. That's not my responsibility to let you know this year. So that's on
okay.
you.
Okay. Fine. I will subscribe for phone notifications on any NBA injury, man. Sure. Okay. I respect that because I always blame Derek for, hey, you're supposed to let me know he was injured before I made my pick. But the way I'm doing it this year, you'll be able to make your pick. You won't have to make it beforehand, Eric. You'll be able to make it right then and there on the stream.
Oh, okay.
I'll be able to roll the
That's
graphics
much
out.
better. Nice.
So yeah. Yeah, that's the plan with that. So it'll be that's how I'll be able to
bug me for hours.
Mm-hmm. That's how I'll be able to have chats pick up there, and have Trevin's and Reese's and whatnot. I'll ask for their pick right before the stream. I'll ask for their picks, but if they don't give it to us, they can comment in stream. And if they miss a day, that's fine. We'll make a different day with the same amount of games. We'll make them all double for them or something just to get them back to the same, so it's, it'll be good. It'll be good. We'll have the double downs and all that. Is there anything else we could introduce with that? We could introduce one game where if you lose, you don't take a loss, but if you win, you still get the win. Your safe pick or something. I don't know. That could be something we could add if you want. But I like the system we have.
Your least certain pick or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Just brainstorming. If you guys have any ideas for ways we could spice it up a little bit more, I'm down for that. Because I love picks against the spread. It's so much fun to be able to do, to participate with chat, to be able to preview the games the following day. And honestly, that's the main reason why our streams will go back to 3:30 p.m. Pacific time Monday and Thursday during the regular season. Because we've been since quarantine started, since the season got shut down, we changed these streams from 3:30 p.m. We used to do it 3:30 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're gonna do Monday, Thursday, and we did used to do it during the day, but it's so long ago it would feel weird to do a stream that early in the day. But yeah, just because we have to do it starting at 3:30 because most of the games start at 4.
Well, in the bubble, we had some post game shows at 12:30.
Yeah. So the schedule will change once we roll into the season. But no, Reese, the mods are not together. I'm gonna let you guys all pick your own, and if one of you beats all of us, then we'll have something for you, just as a kind of thank you for your service to the channel. So anyway, yeah, nothing else to get to. We will catch you guys tomorrow. We'll be live once again. Our schedule looks like, let me look here. We'll be live tomorrow with the post-game show after our final preseason game. Then on Monday, we'll have our normal Monday night stream going live at 9 p.m. Pacific time. Then on Wednesday next week, that's opening night, the 23rd for the Portland Trailblazers. That'll be the first day where we will have Blazers Uprise live at 3:30 p.m. Normally that would be on Thursday, but Thursday is Christmas Eve, and there's no games that day, I believe. And, our game is later that day, so we'll preview our game. We'll do picks against the spread. On Wednesday next week, we'll have Blazers Uprise live at 3:30 p.m. That game tips off at 6 p.m. against the Utah Jazz, unless I mixed up the time. And then we'll have our post-game show right after that, and we will get into the swing of things with Blazers Uprise live Mondays, Thursdays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time, and our post-game shows, and that's when our streams will be. So yeah, that's what's coming up around the corner. After this post-game show, we actually get like our last break, probably the last time we will have 2 days in a row where we don't stream for months, Eric. So I hope you're ready.
Yeah.
let's yeah.
Crazy.
We will have Christmas Eve and Christmas, but then after that, man, it's like 4 games a week.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about 6 streams a week, man. So yeah, can't wait for Blazer basketball that actually counts, and hopefully a lot of wins this season. Hopefully it's better than last season. So anyway, thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you guys later. Have yourself a good rest of your night, and until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.